Hello again, it's me, Morgan Garrettson. Thank you for joining me once again on my journey through the University of Oregon Executive MBA. I am happy to report I just finished my very first term. So that is a 12-week term out of a total of 6. So we're just kind of getting started. What's really cool to know is that this one was really focused, I think, a lot on getting to know the cohort, getting to know the teams, and the program, and kind of getting comfortable with everything. And I would say it was a major success. So let's get started, and I'll do a quick recap of the class I just finished, actually a couple weeks ago now, which was Global Business with Dr. Ellen Schmidt-Devlin, who is not only a professor in the University of Oregon Executive MBA program. She's also a co-founder and director of the Sports Product Marketing Master's program at the university. She's also a double duck. She is a very accomplished athlete, runner at the university, and she has quite a cool story. She's a very, very cool story. I identified a lot with Ellen, I think primarily because she is a competitive athlete from her earlier years. She was a running star at the University of Oregon in the late 70s. She actually was a qualifier for the 1980 Olympics, except for they were boycotted. So she's got that sort of gotta win ambition. She was working during that time part-time for Bill Bowerman in his innovation lab. Bill Bowerman was obviously the coach, the running coach, the track coach at the university then, very famous, and also one of the co-founders of Nike. So big part of her story there. She's actually got an exhibit down at the Hayward Museum, which you probably remember me talking about in episode 1. It's this gorgeous redesigned Hayward field down in Eugene that I think can seat 15,000 people. It's an incredible track, has amazing training facilities, and actually also has a museum in it, and Ellen's featured in it. So I thought that was pretty cool. She's here. This is a exhibit for Steve Prefontaine, but it's just pretty cool that she's a piece of that history. So when she graduated, she went back to work for Bill. She got into Nike, so she did 27 years total at Nike. She worked in product development. She built regional offices, merchandising businesses in multiple countries around the world, specifically in Asia and later in Latin America. And she was really a trailblazer for not only women's sports, but also for women in international business. She was, after her Nike, well, during her Nike stint, she was actually appointed as a general manager. She was the first female to do that, to be appointed as a general manager. So I know she knows what it means to compete, and she knows what it means to compete as a woman in sports and in business, and I just can relate to that a lot. Ellen did this executive MBA program a few years back, and then decided to dedicate her time to telling stories about the women at the University of Oregon. She actually produced a film called We Grew Wings to talk about women in the sort of female athletic side of the track experience at the university. She also, like I said, co-founded the master's program in sports marketing, product marketing. So just a really, really cool story. She's got a ton of experience and really fun to listen to talk. She's got tons of stories, always willing to share, and look her up. I'd highly recommend it. One thing that really tied us together too, I haven't even had a chance to talk to her yet, because this, I think I haven't talked to her about this yet. University of Oregon, through her leadership, announced a sustainable textile facility near the campus. So this facility is going to be used for the sports product marketing program. They're going to be as a partnership with NTX, which is a Singapore-based company based on multiple connections that Ellen has in business in general. And I like the sustainability aspect, of course. It's close to my heart. So they're going to be producing textiles using less water and just more sustainable practices. So that's pretty exciting, and I'm hoping that I get to see it when it's built. So quick check on the syllabus. This was kind of what we went through over the course of the program or the class. We had a little bit of a rocky start. Ellen, actually superhero as she is, actually got really sick and we had to reschedule the whole first weekend. So a little bit of a rocky start, and we kind of compressed the schedule a little bit. And so the presentation I have today is going to be a little bit compressed as well. But let's not start without a quick clip. We've been 1 hour in our global business class. What do we think so far?
Amazing.
I mean,
exciting.
Are we into this?
I'm into it. I'm for it. The front row.
The front row.
Front and center. We got our coffees.
Michael and I always sit in the front. We're gonna like this. That's my partner in crime, Michael Scorcio. He's my teammate. He and I met during the intro sessions and happened to end up on the same team, and we both nerd out in the front row. And I can't hear or see well enough to stay focused unless I'm in the front. So there we go. We get to do it together. All right, couple things about, I'm going to skip a few of those items probably, but globalization, deglobalization, obviously something you need to know quite a lot about if you're going to be doing business globally. The idea is moving goods, services, information, people, even across borders, not, trafficking, but people emigrating and immigrating and for business. The opportunity in a global market just means you have a bigger market. So it's pretty appealing. You think about a lot of fast food's probably a really good reference. So thinking about McDonald's and how they kind of started here in the US, and then now they have 36,000 stores in over 100 countries. Globalization is obviously enhanced by billions of people on the internet every day, mobile devices, constant access to information, and which just by nature sort of brings barriers down. Who governs the convergences and divergences of these markets? Here's a handful of them you've probably heard of. These global institutions, we know the IMF, WTO, World Trade Organization, previously working as GATT, the World Bank, United Nations, of course, and then G7. And now we have BRICS to kind of compete with G7. So BRICS is made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Other countries that are entering BRICS: Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, UAE. So that's kind of now giving BRICS a 12% control over the global economy in the Suez Canal. So that's a direct competition and with the G7 and some of the other Western economic antagonizers, as they would call them. But also about deglobalization, we want to talk a little bit about that. So there's sort of a behavior, not quite a trend, but definitely a behavior towards a stronger national policy and versus a really global policy. There are forces that are trying to nationalize again, deglobalize, and become less resilient on international trade. Some indicators of that you'll see are Brexit, so Britain removing themselves from the EU, what we're calling Trumpism, so sort of the national nationalization that happened under Trump and the trade wars that came from it. The Ukraine war, hundreds of corporations pulling out of Russia as a result. Problems with the supply chain, the global energy crisis, which I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis through my work in sustainability. And we're still cleaning up the mess from the pandemic. So deglobalization, another example might be we just had the COP28 conference, right? It's a global environmental conference against climate change. And it was in, I think, Saudi Arabia. But getting all of those countries to work together because they're all impacted differently by the climate crisis. So they don't need, they believe, to contribute the same or make the same sacrifices or adjustments or changes as some of the countries that have been doing more of the damage, if you will. So just it's deglobalization, not necessarily happening, like it's not necessarily official, but it's trends towards countries being more independent and less dependent on other nations in general. All right. I'm not even going to talk too much about cultural understanding. I'm going to touch on it a little bit later here. But individualism versus collectivism, that's kind of an important thing to know in a culture if you're going to be going into it. So an example of something, a country that might be more individualistic, definitely the US. So we're kind of like independent. I can do it all by myself. I can I can raise a kid, I can do everything I need to do, whereas collectivist country or collectivist culture would kind of come together on all things. So it's really more normal in the far eastern countries. So on. Quick sidebar. We were asked to do a little bit of cultural experience. I was really lucky in my company. We had kind of a collective afternoon one day, and we all made people from all over the world got together on a call and made empanadas together, led by a couple of friends in Argentina. I also have somebody on my team that lives in Israel, which is a whole other story, but she taught me some words over the last year or two, which I am using now. But toda, thank you, shalom, hello, and tanok. I don't know if I spelled that right, but it means to have a baby. International trade. So this idea of economic transactions made between countries, pretty simple. Again, goods, services, information, people, all kinds of stuff. There are 4 theories. I invite you to look these up if you feel so inclined. When governments don't attempt to restrict what citizens can buy from one another, that's more on what we call like free trade. Those are the theories here that you can look into. You'd probably find the US between the years of 2016 and 2020 in the absolute advantage category. We'll see what happens in the next couple of years. FDI, just talking about investing in other countries. So, I mean, literally just a Starbucks going and investing a couple, millions of dollars in Japan to build stores there and expand their brand. I thought this was an interesting data point. 85% of all exchange transactions still involve the US dollar. So one thing to know about currencies that have high value against the dollar, those are companies that are going to benefit from importing. So if they're going to be buying for less outside and buy low, sell high. So they're going to be buying products that are less expensive for them outside of their borders and bringing them in. And the opposite goes for currencies that have a weaker value against the dollar, and they'd be benefiting from exporting. All right, global business strategy. Ooh, one more quick sidebar. This term, this last couple of weeks, we spent a ton of time getting to know, like I said, each other. We actually got a couple of opportunities to mix with the other cohort and cohorts, which has been super cool. A handful of these folks I met through the process of application and so on, and now I'm kind of getting to share some real life experiences with them, which is awesome. We wanted to quickly shout out to Wendy. She manages a lot of stuff, but we really love Wendy. She participates mostly, I think, in logistics and helping. Very important job is organizing all the catering, and it's always amazing. So Wendy, thank you. We actually had one of our members, our cohort mates, Jesse Campbell, hosted a really amazing Friendsgiving. We call ourselves Hope for Humanity. It was just a funny phrase that we came up with, all 50 of us during our immersion. So Hope for Humanity, we truly see ourselves as like a collective rather than we're more than classmates. I think we feel like we have an opportunity to make a lot of change, and it's sort of silly, but sort of not. But Jesse was kind enough to host a Friendsgiving, and this is just a handful of some of the friends that joined. That beautiful view downtown Portland, and we couldn't appreciate her more for letting us all invade her clubhouse. And she said kids were welcome, and then I think she thought maybe that was not the best idea. Sorry, Jesse. Thank you, Jessie. Sorry, Jessie. We took over her, the kids took over her karaoke room and we didn't get to do karaoke. I'm so sorry. We'll make it up to you. All right, back to business. Global business strategy, there's just two types of pressures in global business, cost reductions and local responsiveness. So when you go into a new market, you'll want to understand which of those have more higher or lower pressure, and then accommodate your strategy accordingly. These are some of the market entry strategies. There are a lot, there might be more than this. When we do get a little further ahead here, I'll tell you about our project. We did a team presentation and we chose to do a wholly owned subsidiary as our business entry strategy, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. As far as global marketing, we got to hear from another Priscilla, used to be CMO at Columbia. Priscilla has a background with Airbnb. She's done work with the World Surf League. She used to be I think she a former Hurley CMO, and she actually ran the Olympics in 2016 in Rio, from a marketing perspective and branding perspective. So lots of cool information from her. She was so fun to listen to. She's originally from Brazil, but just very global human, just an absolute joy to listen to. What she talked about, I can boil it down here, I guess. Make way for understanding. So again, going into the culture a lot, decoding language, being able to really understand how the language differences can impact decisions that you're going to be making. Cultural input, get feedback and output from the local culture, create a creative space. She talked about authenticity and lean into the values that really matter to the customers in that area, in that market. She used a quote from a colleague of hers that said, I love this, real change of global strategy isn't how big you can get, but how small you can get. So thinking kind of more local than global, I think that's essential in a strategy going into a new global market. She was brilliant. I'm going to skip over the Marvel and Disney, how to go global. So that's similar, sort of how to be big and small at the same time. Ellen wrote her dissertation on this and is published, so you can look that up if you'd like. How do you create value in a new market? You either go in with a low cost approach or differentiation strategy. Airbnb, for example, totally leaning into the differentiation. For our group project, we went in with an automotive brand and took it to another market where there was already competition, and we definitely used differentiation as our value strategy. Looking at global human resource management, not to be overlooked as we enter a new market. There's international hiring and staffing strategies that you'd want to take into account. So for example, if you want to bring in expatriate managers, so somebody from your home country, let's say the US, to go over to, Germany or somewhere in the UK to manage your new business, that your new market and your operations there. That gives you, access to the core business and also gives you kind of control over kind of what's going on there in the market. And then you can grow the business using some of the more local staff and local expertise. So we lots of different ideas and combinations of staffing. AI and HR, I mean, this is a very global topic right now, which you can look up. We talked about it in terms of how people are using it just to find people to hire, and how it's changing kind of the talent acquisition strategies globally. And then just thinking about local ethics when you're doing your hiring. Global topics. So obviously China is really high on our mind. They've got their own economic crisis going on. You probably saw their economy has slowed down following the pandemic. So they're kind of looking to shore up economic allies, while also kind of doing some questionable stuff in the China Sea. I recently saw a picture of all their activity in the China Sea, which is basically blocking traffic through there and blocking trade. So questionable, in my opinion. the relationship with Taiwan, how that's been changing, and then US involvement over there, of course, everything gets very complicated. Their relationship with Russia has grown much stronger politically, economically. I mentioned BRICS. You've also probably seen the leaders of China and Russia, working together on some economic trade deals. There's a really interesting article in the New York Times that demonstrates kind of after the invasion of Ukraine, how many people exited Russia, and then it just left this massive opportunity for China to go in. So China and Russia, I mean, and their trade increased 500% probably. And the two of those countries are kind of keeping each other going. Definitely something to be keeping watch on. So let's see how the Russia pays for its war. That's kind of a big piece of that article. And then the international ripple effects, the impacts. This could be also true with the Israel conflict that we're seeing now. Just whenever anything like that's going on, these agencies, global agencies might be getting involved. Some of what they come up with and agree on is binding, some of it isn't. But it's just kind of it's a really interesting way to view the world through kind of the eyes of war, and kind of watching the ripple effects of all that go on. So quickly jumping through our team projects, these are the aspects of our brand that we chose that we were supposed to be able to convey in a new market. So choose a company from any US brand or company and go to any market in the world. We chose Michael, who you just met. We chose a project that he was actually currently working on, and which was an automotive company, parts company. And we are going to then create a distribution company that would distribute those goods and products and services in the UK, in London specifically. So that was what we chose to do. And our job was to be able to understand the market, understand the culture, understand the trade agreements that we have. We just signed one with UK actually this summer, the Atlantic Declaration. So kind of a lot that you have to be aware of. The value of the dollar over there, it's actually pretty good at the moment. But I'll just share this quick intro that we did. Who's heard the phrase mind the gap? All right. So that refers to the warning that's on the platform at the train stations you'd see all around the UK, alerting you to the gap between the platform and the train. And you see it everywhere in London because so many people actually prefer to ride the tube. But you're going to take the journey with us today as we mind the gap and take what appears to be a small step into a whole new strategic international market for our trusted American brand, Mock Products. We are going to London, England. So some of the things that we wanted to consider, our approach was to take the company Mock Products into London, and the strategy is strategic and international because of the locale that the UK afforded to us to start doing business in other regions. So if we had a projection, a 5-year projection, and making some assumptions, of course, this is sort of a pretend project somewhat. We got to take liberties as if it were, though. But we're near, Germany, we're near France. Germany has a massively famous car culture, so the opportunity to expand into Germany was really appealing. We also had the chance to talk to my very dear friend. I didn't include her picture here, but I will post it. Philippa Tuck has a marketing agency in London. Brilliant woman. We got to so many good tidbits from her about the market, the brand, what to take into account. She let us know that, British people kind of see American products as sort of pioneering. So there's still a positive sort of correlation between how they feel about the American products, which reinforced our decision to go to London. And then just understanding the state of the economy, how we're going to differentiate, I love this because this is kind of a make-believe. Like I said, we got to take some liberties, and I love how easy it sounds. It's worth noting that we're not first to market here, so we will be willing to accept some noise in the market from the competition, and we're going to buzz right through that with differentiation. We're just going to buzz right through that. We're just going to buzz right through that. You can just buzz through it. It's going to be a little more challenging than that in real life. And it's fun fact, Michael's company, after this presentation, which was actually purchased by Mock Products, so we're going to actually see this whole thing play out in real life potentially in 2024. So we'll keep you posted about that. Handful of really good takeaways. If you're going to take a brand into a new market, you need to have a very solid understanding of the market, including timing. So what would be a good time to enter? For example, if you're a car company, maybe you want to come in and do a big marketing splash, a big launch around the TT or something like a big or a Grand Prix or something like that. So kind of thinking about timing and what's already on the ground there and how to compete. Engage and recall if you've been a world traveler in some cultural practices, and share the ones you have, share the ones you know with the people that you know that are going to be going into these markets. Try to monitor global activity as well as possible through an unbiased lens. We were instructed to look at sources like the BBC, The Economist, and really not much else. If we wanted to try to keep our focus on facts. So definitely keeping an eye on a lot of global activity. No more stuff from YouTube that my husband watches. International business is very complex, but it's very exciting. I think just the things that I listed, the magnanimity of it and also like the localness of it, I think is so fun and interesting and such an interesting challenge and problem to solve. I would say that dry runs matter. Our presentation went really well. We did a couple dry runs beforehand, and I felt a lot more confident with dry runs. This is a note for me for future, by the way. Keep saying yes to invites and keep building those relationships. I have had the best time getting to know my cohort way outside of my own team. Like I said, there's 50 of us. The intellectual horsepower in there is impressive, and everybody's well connected to all kinds of stuff. Like when we needed to talk to somebody in Europe, we could contact anybody. We all had contacts all over the world. Ellen shared plenty of her own contacts. She had plenty of her contacts come and join the judging panels for the presentation. So, speaking of that, like staying connected with the professors, I think is also really cool. Ellen has such a rich history, like I said, being a trailblazer for women's sports and women in business. Definitely worth staying in touch with the professors. So definitely be seeing Ellen again. And just once again, I wanted to shout out to my team, the executioners, for just being incredible and supportive and going in at full speed all the time. I know I can be fun to work with, but they're amazing. They're really amazing. So I'm really looking forward to next term. So with that, go Dogs!